When most people think of Congress, they picture the Senate chamber, a place of grand speeches and open floor debates, where national policy is decided in view of the public. But the actual shaping of legislation occurs in the cramped committee rooms down the hall. These spaces are in such high demand that lobbyists hire professional line sitters to wait outside for hours just to secure a seat. In these rooms, lawmakers and experts listen to testimony, propose amendments, and write the specific language of a bill. While the final text can be changed on the floor, it almost always retains the wording established here. To understand how national policy is made, we have to look past the public floor and analyze these specialized processing nodes. Every single session, thousands of complex bills are introduced, creating a severe bottleneck in the process. An assembly of 535 generalist lawmakers lacks the cognitive capacity to read, analyze, and master the details of every single issue brought before them. The decentralized committee system serves as the architectural solution to this volume problem. This network achieves a necessary division of labor. Incoming bills are routed to specific nodes, allowing the members assigned there to become specialized issue experts. Without this structural division, the legislative process would collapse under the weight of its own data. Standing committees are the permanent processing nodes of the system, carrying over from one legislative session to the next. Each of these committees possesses a strictly defined area of jurisdiction. They act as gatekeepers, filtering the massive volume of bills and deciding which few will advance to the floor and which will be discarded. Most bills never get beyond this stage. The majority party controls these nodes. The number of members from each party is usually based on the percentage of members each party has in the House. However, the majority party often awards itself a supermajority on vital committees to ensure its control remains unchallenged. Standing committees are further divided into subcommittees, which focus on even more specific parts of the parent committee's jurisdiction. To prevent infinite bureaucratic fragmentation, the 113th Congress limited most House committees to no more than 6 subcommittees. There are a few exceptions for powerhouse committees. Appropriations is permitted 12 subcommittees, while Armed Services and Oversight are allowed 7. Standing committees and their subcommittees act as the primary filter, quietly killing the vast majority of legislation before the public ever sees it. Select committees are temporary nodes formed to study one specific issue and report back to the Senate or the House, to historical deep dives into organized crime. While they gather intelligence, select committees generally lack the power to propose bills directly to the House or Senate. They are designed to last for no more than one term of Congress, though they are frequently renewed and can even be converted into permanent standing committees. Joint committees are unique nodes that combine members from both the House and the Senate.
They function as bicameral study groups, focusing on broad structural concerns like atomic energy, defense, or the macroeconomy. Like select committees, joint committees act as advisory bodies rather than direct engines of lawmaking. While these specific nodes generate critical intelligence, they are structurally walled off from the direct power to actually write the law. Legally, no bill can reach the president until both houses of Congress have passed exactly the same text. In practice, bills rarely survive the separate House and Senate processing nodes in an identical state. When versions differ, a temporary bicameral node called a conference committee is organized to resolve the misalignment. Members, called conferees, are drafted from the original standing committees that worked on the bill to bargain over each mismatched section. Their goal is to produce a unified conference report, a compromise that both houses will accept. When this report reaches the floor of each house, it must be looked at as a whole. It cannot be changed. The General Assembly is forced into a binary choice. They must accept or reject the report exactly as it is. This creates a legislative bottleneck, granting the conferees enormous power to dictate the exact final language of American law. These structural mechanics are driven by the specific ways lawmakers are assigned to these nodes. Committee assignments dictate a lawmaker's career trajectory, institutional influence, and ability to raise campaign funds. Members strategically request assignments that match the needs of their constituents, such as a farm state representative prioritizing a seat on the Agriculture Committee. Within each of these nodes, the committee chair is the most powerful individual figure.
chairs possess immense unilateral authority. They decide when the committee meets, which bills to consider, who will testify at hearings, and how the budget is spent. Historically, these positions were awarded through a seniority system where the longest-serving majority party member automatically became the leader. Structural reforms after 1970 and 1995 sought to democratize this power by introducing secret ballot elections for chairs, term limits, and the ability of committee majorities to call meetings without the chair's approval. Even with these reforms, controlling committee assignments and chairmanships remains the most effective way for a political party to control the nation's policy output. When we view the entirety of the legislative architecture from a macro perspective, the structure of the system becomes visible. The committee system functions as a multi-tiered filtration architecture. At the first tier, nearly 90% of proposed bills dissolve. They are quietly killed in committee before they can ever advance. The few survivors trickle down through
Only a tiny fraction of bills reach the bottom of this funnel as perfectly aligned legislation ready to be signed into law. The public debates seen on the House floor are merely the final ceremony of a much deeper, closed-door process. To analyze how American law is forged, one must look at the specific, specialized committee nodes where the real power to write